Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our theme this season is what does it mean to expand into a new story? And how do you stop hiding your spiritual gifts and dare to be seen for who you really are by saying yes to your soul and telling your story? And today I am thrilled to welcome InStory expert Janet Wilson. Hi, Janet.
Hello.
So before we dive in, I'm going to read a little bit about Janet. Janet is a multi-genre artist, writer, and design consultant. She's a shining example of turning challenges into opportunities. Being known as the butterfly girl and a nature lover, she says she is most balanced under a tree and perched on a boulder. Her inspiration comes from nature, and she's following the urge to dwell in the quiet stillness she's found within herself, while going out and making a difference in the world. Janet has recently returned from a journey to off the beaten path places in far away wild lands. Tune in to hear revelations within her quiet stillness and revelations of where you have just come back from. All right, so I'm going to ask you to start where everyone else is starting with what does it mean to you to expand into a new story?
Well, it's become the mission of my life. Um, I met you, Devorah, in 2023, and I was at a really low place. In fact, I was in the midst of my end game, and I had decided that if this was really it, that I needed to go to the two places in the world that I wanted to go to for a very long time. And what happened that in that trip was
Wait,
that
which places? You didn't say.
oh, I'm sorry. It was Nepal and India.
Oh, just
And
Nepal and India, that's all. No, anyway, go ahead.
and what happened in that trip was it wasn't the end, it was the beginning of this unfathomable life of, that I'm living now, more than I could have ever imagined, just opened the world to all kinds of opportunities and outreaches that I'm just so very grateful and so excited to be part of.
I would say since you joined InStory 2 years ago, year and a half ago, now you're in our leadership team, I would say you have definitely expanded into a new story, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you didn't start your travels until when you came, you hadn't traveled yet, right?
Yeah. I met you in April and my trip was in October. I had booked it, but I was just preparing for the trip and I was doing your courses with you and I joined InStory in August. And yeah, yeah. So it's been a really wild ride.
All right, where do you want to start with your slides to start kind of telling us your story? Because in a way, your turning point was going to Nepal and India. All right, so maybe you want to start with that because really, one things we talk about is just those turning point moments that change everything. So do you want to start with the first slide that we have for you?
Sure.
Okay. So and I'm just gonna make it bigger. Here we go. Okay, how's that? Does that look good?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm calling this Crossing the Uns, and it's crossing the unseen, the unknown, and the unimaginable. This photo I took from the airplane when I was leaving Mongolia in October. And it's just wide, vast, open, unknown everything. And but as I said, the journey really started in India and Nepal. And I just want to say that whenever you're going to step into a new story, you need to take a step, whether you understand the step or not. For me, I got clear because I got really quiet and I went really deep into my own solitude, and I really started listening to myself and what I needed, and what I really wanted and where I really needed to go, even if I didn't know why. And that has become the thing that I look for and search for every day. So I knew why I wanted to go to India, and I knew why I wanted to go to Nepal. And maybe you can just go ahead and show that first slide, Devorah. I was really, this is India, and I was really influenced by Gandhi. And I had always wanted to go there, but I was afraid to go there. I was afraid I couldn't take the poverty, that the suffering would be too much because I'm so sensitive to everything, that I really take it all in and I carry it and I want to help somehow. And so I never went there. And so a week after I wrote out my end game, I got an invitation to come to this boarding school in India. And so my whole trip was planned about these few days that I got to go there. You can see on the top left corner is the new school that they are building for these children. And there's around 100 children at that point when I went in 2023. And when I went back in 2024, that school is functioning on the lower level, and all of these smaller kids that you see in the bigger picture in the middle on the bottom, that's the younger kids. There was 90 of them who did what the directors asked me to come back and run art workshops with the children. So we call it Art from the Heart, and we're just exploring about how they're feeling, expressing things. These children are not adoptable, they're orphans, and they had nowhere else to go. And they, one way or another, was brought to this boarding school, and they stay here through their whole life until they graduate from university or a trade school, until they're done going to school. So that was the beginning of something for me to be involved with, year after year. And they light up my life. They, they opened my heart, and I love these kids. So, so that's India. I went to Nepal specifically to.
You want to say what the bottom right picture is? Just
Okay, sure. The
tell us.
bottom right picture is Matrimonder in Oroville. It's also in southern India. And that place is like a religious pilgrimage, and people live there from all over the world. They have their own currency, they have their own government. They're a little piece of heaven. They grow most of their own food. They make their, they weave their own clothing. They do everything naturally. And I went there in 2023 as part of a spiritual tour that I did after the boarding school. And I knew when I was there that I wanted to go back. So last year in 2024,
Sorry.
I spent a month in Matrimonder at and I actually got on to the garden team. So I got to be in this beautiful place with all of these gardens and help keep it up. And it's just every time I go to India now, I will go back there for a couple weeks, I think, because I just love it there.
And what about the top right
The
picture?
top right is one of my, that's a paper collage that I made out of handmade paper from India. And I did that in Spain in 2024 at an artist in residency that I got into, that I was accepted to go into these prehistoric rock art caves. And so because it's made out of Indian paper, I put it on my slide.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. So are we moving on? Where are we
yeah.
going next?
We're gonna go to Nepal, and I'll just touch on quickly why I needed to go there. That's the next slide, Devorah. Go back one. Thank you. So Nepal, I had always thought there was a mountain there that I needed to climb, but I didn't necessarily need to come back down. I kind of thought that Nepal would be the last place in the world I would ever go. I came back down that mountain because India was after that. So the schedule, you know, but I wasn't desperate anymore, right? And it's not like I would ever have hurt myself. I would have never done anything, but I just was done with life. And then on this trip, like I said, everything opened up and I had all kinds of reasons to keep going. So the all the top pictures there are me at a paper mill that I have a friend who knew the owner of this paper mill. She bought it and she turned it into making paper out of all the water lilies that were clogging the river. And this woman, her name was Anita Roddick. She only employed single women who were trying to raise kids. And now, in fact, I got to tour it while I was there. They started a school for those children of these mothers who were working in this paper mill. And there's 300 children in that school now. So it was just an honor for me to be there. And this is where I plan to have my book printed, is from this paper mill on this water lily paper out of Nepal.
Wow.
That's why I put the slide in.
Wow. Fabulous.
Okay.
Oops. Is that where we're going?
No, go back,
Whoops.
go back a couple more. You want you want the
This one?
uh
No.
you want the one with me on the bridge.
Oh, back to the one with you on the bridge.
There
Okay.
you go. Okay, so the first
Oops.
stop on this trip was Bhutan. And I wanted to climb Tiger's Nest, which you can see on the top left frame, the top left photo. That is Tiger's Nest. And I wanted to climb to that monastery. And the weather was not cooperating, but it all worked out and I was able to make it. So that was my dream come true for Bhutan.
Can you
Bhutan
say
is
a word or two about what that is and why it was so significant for you? And
Yeah, there's monks that live up here and then they pray in these little huts along the way. And this is the big monastery that is up there. And you can only get up there by foot. And, you know, it's not accessible any other way. So it's one of those places that just really urged me there. You know, I really listen to what I feel and what I'm told inside. And so for the last 5 years, I've had my eye on Bhutan. And it's a little small country, it's closed. Nobody can just move to Bhutan. You have to be born there. Indians, the residents from India can go back and forth without a visa. But other than that, you're only allowed to stay in Bhutan as long as you're with a tour group or a guide. You can't just find yourself there and go off on your own. It's a tiny country with lots of Indian influence. They're really rich in natural resources, and they're doing a really great job of keeping their culture pure, yet taking steps to be in the modern in the modern world. And it was just down below the Tiger's Nest photo is me on this bridge with all of these flags. But next to it is the tour guide, and we really bonded. Her name is Rixie, and we chat almost every week. And she's 26 years old, and she's just got so much potential. And so I'm just really excited that she's part of my life. And then on the other side of this slide is the next place where I went, which was South Korea. And I went to an island called Jeju Island, and I was led by that butterfly that's kind of right in the middle of the thing. I started this trail to go up to this Halison volcano. It's called
Is that
Mount
the one with the
Halison.
picture with your arms up?
Yep.
Mhm.
No, that's the bridge in Bhutan crossing the river.
No, no, though, on the very bottom right.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I got it.
And then with me in the sun hat there, that
Oh,
is the butterfly on my shoulder.
I see. Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
actually, it actually rode with me on, and I know it wasn't the same butterfly who went on the whole 6 hour hike, but but that species just led me the whole way from the beginning of the trail all the way to the end, and it was just so touching the way it, first it landed on my leg, and then it flew up onto my hand, and then it comes up on my shoulder, and it just walked with me. It was so sweet. So,
Janet, how did you become the butterfly girl? I know this is like taking us to a whole different realm, but like butterflies are a very big thing in your life. And I don't remember
yeah,
how that got started. Is that like, are you willing to just say a quick
sure.
word on that?
Sure. I think it started when I was a small child. My grandmother started me painting and drawing when I was 4. And one of the first projects we did was made plaster butterflies, and I painted them. And then I started seeing them, I just really gravitated to butterflies, and they find me everywhere I go, even if it's not a normal habitat for them. It's so bizarre. They're like my totem, my spirit creature, right? And I think I relate to them so much because I have transformed in my life so many times through so many difficult things. And every time it feels like I have become another species of butterfly in the process. But because they land on me and they find me, all the time, I just started calling myself the butterfly girl. So that's the shortest story I can tell about that.
Oh, that's fabulous. I just love it. Okay, so here we go. We'll come back here to the
Right.
slide on
So if you're ever interested in UNESCO World Heritage Sites, the entire island of Jeju is a World Heritage Site, and it's the only place in the world, I believe, that they have actually named these women divers as a World Heritage themselves. These women have took over the fishing industry for their husbands or the men on the island who were taxed so heavily for going down into the ocean and getting their fish that the women started diving instead, and they're not taxed. So these women took over the industry, and they would dive every day, and they would go down to 50, 60 meters without tanks. They're totally amazing. All these women were in their 80s. There's 3 of them there. I watched them dive that day. There's 3 of them. They don't go down into the ocean like they used to because they're in their 80s, but they still dive down. One of them brought up an octopus just in this little cove. And just, it's amazing, you know. Go women, power.
amazing. Wow, wow. Okay, are we going forward?
Yep, yep.
Oops, that's back. Oh, this one?
Yep.
Okay.
So Mongolia was between this, but this was Thailand. And I did a trek in Thailand. I was the oldest person on the group. I could have been their grandmother. It was very humbling for me. The hike was really hard, way harder than I thought it would be, harder than anyone thought it would be. But the highlight for me of Thailand, other than the hill tribes, where they're these little communities where they're very self-sufficient and they grow their own food and they survive, pretty much on their own. They're not an established part of society, really. They have their own areas and they stay as family structures. And up there in these hill tribes are where all of the elephant sanctuaries are. And I ended up going to two of them. The first one, it was me by myself with 5 elephants. And I can tell you, I was completely exhausted after being with those elephants for 4 hours because they're constantly eating and constantly walking and constantly bathing and constantly eating again. But this elephant sanctuary was the second one, and I had a really life-changing experience with this particular elephant. I can't pronounce her real name, it's listed there on the top, but her mahout, her protector, her guardian, all elephants have their own person who is a mahout. They sleep with the elephants, and by the way, elephants only sleep 3 to 4 hours a day or a night after they're weaned, after they're not nursing anymore. So they're very active, and I don't know how these guys do it year after year. But anyway, he told me her name was Bone Leon, and so that's how I spell it the way that I did. This elephant was an elephant that used to be rode. You know, she would have to carry people on her back, and she didn't like to be around people, and she would stay all by herself. Right below her is the Indian tribe, the elephant tribe there. There were 6 elephants at this sanctuary, and she's the one way off there in the back by herself with her mahout. She doesn't
In the
eat.
bottom left corner?
Yeah, right underneath the big elephant on the left side.
Mhm.
That's the elephant tribe, and she's way in the back by herself. And the other 5 elephants kind of were, socially with people and, very interactive with each other. But she stayed by herself. And I decided, since I had already had hands-on first experience with these elephants at the other sanctuary, that I was just going to let the 26 other people that were there have at it, right? I was watching the elephants, I was just taking it in, and I just kind of stood by myself alone, and I kind of do that all the time anyway, but I just really didn't want to interact with the crowd. So I was standing by myself the whole time. And I was watching them all go into the river, and they were in there bathing and spraying the water with their trunks and everything, and all the people were taking pictures and stuff like that. And I'm standing on the edge of this little, like walkway, and I felt something go across the top of my left foot. And I was like, at first I was, honestly terrified, because I thought that there was a snake that was going over my foot. But I looked down and there wasn't, and I felt something next to me on the left. So I just kind of turned and looked up, and she was standing right there, and I looked right into her eyes, and it was the most amazing connection I have ever had.
Wow.
And she was so gentle, we just kind of locked in. And the mahout, he was standing, right by there too. And he said, she's smelling you. She won't forget you. And so I just had this, continued to have this with her. He moved away and just gave us space. And it was so incredible to have an animal that size stand right next to you. Like, I had touched the elephants before at the other sanctuary, but this was totally different. I mean, she sought me out. She came to me on her own. I never heard her walking up to me at all. She was probably about half an acre away from me the last I knew, and I never heard her. I had no idea that she was beside me. And so the very last slide is a little poem that I wrote, or just a remembrance of our time together. I can read it if you'd like, or we can just keep
Yeah,
talking.
read it.
Okay, I have to put on my glasses.
That's okay.
In her shadow, Who showed me the light in the darkness? When that darkness was all I knew as safe. Who led me out when all I wanted was to stay deep? I felt something rub across the top of my left foot. Looking down, there was nothing but a presence to the side of me. I turned my head and looked up straight into her eyes. The loner, a matriarch to me, gentle and oh so strong. A pause passed as she and I locked into one another in that spontaneous gaze. Soft and tender was her vibration. She knew I was safe. I knew she was affirming my strength. For all the mountains we have both climbed, all the hardships we've each endured, in that respite, we mysteriously shared everything and knew one another completely. She had come to me silently across the grassy green field, softly laying her trunk tenderly across my foot, her way of whispering hello. Moments passed, two breaths joined and were realized within. Nurtured, safe, connected, two loners together at last. A passage for forever, as neither of us forgets us in this.
Wow.
That was one of my incredible experiences on these journeys.
Wow. What a gift.
So, yeah, my life really expanded, and I'm following these urges. I can't not do it. I'm so, totally immersed in where the next place is and also in writing my book. And that's how my life has expanded. And this is all since I met you, Devorah. So InStory has been a miracle in my life, and the connections with the women and, how I have grown through everything that you have done. It's just, yeah,
Well, it has been my honor, and I think for many of us who are teachers, we are in awe of how our students surpass where we ever thought anyone would go. Like the just where you have gone and what you've seen and this moment you described, it's not something that I ever thought of. Like I held space for you, but where you were guided, it's not something that ever occurred to me in a way. And I think sometimes I don't know, this expanding into a new story is letting go of what we think we're supposed to do, what we think the shape of it is going to be, and expanding. And you are a model that expanding and saying yes to what's showing up.
yeah.
I don't think you ever thought when you came into InStore that you would be having such worldwide profound experiences.
No, no, my life was totally closed down then. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, what I'm finding in all of these travels, even before 2023, is that whenever I go, and it can be in the United States, it doesn't matter, but whenever I'm out in nature, pieces of my puzzle fall together, right? And I know myself more, and I understand what my next step is, and I just take it. I mean, that's probably one of my greatest gifts, is that throughout my whole life I've always said yes to the opportunities that came my way. I heard about artist in residencies, and I'm like, oh, let me look at those. And then I find them. I'm applying. I'm going to see if I can go there. I'm going to see if I can do that. And, it's just, I just can't stress enough how you don't know what the opportunities hold, and have the courage to try, have the courage to go, because you will find something
Right,
that you need there.
right, right.
Yeah.
I think that's why I love this idea of saying yes to your soul. because you have really been a model for that. Um, tell people what your free gift is, and when you get Janet's free gift, which is sort of the opposite of traveling out into the world, but you'll see that her email is there with her gift. And I encourage anybody who is feeling really inspired in this moment to connect to Janet. Like, just if you want to hear how she's made this transition, any ideas she might have for you to help you so that you can say yes to your soul. And you should know, anyone comes into InStory, Janet's part of our team. Like, Janet will help you. Each person who's in story leadership has something. Paula's in New Zealand, and has her poetry. Like, each of my leadership team people are women who've said yes to their soul, but in really different ways. And Janet, I feel like you're such an inspiration for one way of saying yes,
Mm.
and to encourage people to take that step to say yes. But I think your free gift is part of the key to doing it. So tell them what it is.
So I was doing writing prompts, which were several words, and you were just supposed to write. And I mentioned my quiet stillness, where I really don't ever come out of there. Right? It's this peace, contentment. I'm just really in touch with my soul, and so I write from there. And I think it's almost like a channel, it's like I just open myself, and whatever comes, I just let it out. And that's what happened with these words. I mean, I had no idea, but it ended up being a meditation. And that's what I'm sharing with you. So you're not going out to another part of the world, you're going within to your own world and finding your own space.
I love that, because that is such a crucial part, because just going out also doesn't work. And what I love, Janet, is this going into that stillness, and it's from that place that the new is revealed.
And for me, it's every day. I mean, I wake up that way, I go to sleep that way. I had to set a lot of boundaries to pull myself out of that last depression. And I yeah, it's something very, very important. You have to learn how to take care of yourself and know when you've had enough, and when you need to rest, and when you need people, and when you don't. you
Yeah,
know yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that we don't have to hold up all the energy all by ourselves. One
Right.
of the things that we hear from everyone in story in the year and the 8 weeks, whatever it is, and Janet's helped lead in both of those, there's this feeling like, oh, I can be myself here. Like, didn't you have some of that feeling just with the shift in the group feeling for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. I could say whatever had come up for me in our sessions, in our weekly meetings, and I didn't have to worry, that it would be inappropriate or people wouldn't like what I had to say. It's just you just once you start knowing that you're safe, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and it allows us to find each other and to feel like you're heard and valued, and what you say is heard and valued. It's like you're what comes to you, but what you have to say to others is received as valuable. So it really rewires that old negative thinking that no one that what I have to say doesn't matter, no one wants to hear my story. Like, all
Mhm.
that is part of why we do these interviews, why I want you to tell your story, and all of you watching to tell your story. So, all right, Janet, leave us with the last thought or two before we wrap up.
Um, well, I encourage you to, you know, reach out. Don't suffer alone. And you know, it, there's yeah, it is a lonely, solitary journey. We all have that. But, you're not alone. You're not alone, even though it's your journey. And I think the thing that I realized with that first trip to India and Nepal was that I finally owned my path, right?
Mm.
I had never fit in, and all of a sudden, I'm on my own path doing my own thing, and everything is falling together. And own it, be you, your difference makes a difference. So, my path isn't your path, my path isn't for everyone. And I'm not, I just don't care what anybody thinks about me anymore. It's just like, hey, I'm doing my thing. So I just encourage you to have the courage to step up and come out. Yeah.
I'm so with you on that. So whatever is lighting you up, all of you watching, say yes to your soul. Do the meditation from Janet. Connect with us in the Facebook group. Reach out to Janet if you feel inspired by her energy or presence or vision. And as I always say in farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.
Bye.